Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network. The broadcast shows are for informational and entertainment purposes only. They are not designed to provide listeners with specific personal, medical, or counseling advice. Individuals with a medical issue should always consult their healthcare provider. MS&Me is not responsible for content of individual shows. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own. Enjoy the show.
Hi everyone, this is Lauren Parrott, host of Through My Eyes, A Life with MS on the MS&Me Radio Network. Today I want to talk about being resilient while living with multiple sclerosis. I initially got this idea from the Momentum magazine that comes to MS patients from the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, and I read an article about a woman. Her name is Danya Baines, and she's quoted by saying, "Learn the skills and habits that can help you thrive in the face of adversity." And I said, I was thinking, oh my gosh, I said, what are those habits? Because I would really like to thrive in the face of adversity. I really want to live the best that I can while living with multiple sclerosis, because it's not easy, as we all know. I mean, every day, everything that I do is a challenge, from walking to, I mean, you name it. Every activity that you do is just harder for people with MS or for people living with a challenge than for people who don't have a challenge. It's just difficult. It's really difficult. So I want to see what these habits are, because I would like to live the best life that I can while having multiple sclerosis. And I'm just going to read a couple snippets from the article, and hopefully that you can relate to it like I did, or maybe some of the things I say can help you. But in the article, one of the things it says, this is from a patient, from a person that has MS, another person, his name is Chuck Curry, and he said, "I think resilience is kind of like a muscle, something that develops with use. And we are all probably born with that muscle, and all sorts of things can happen during our lives and lead to its development or atrophy. You can either work on using that muscle, and if you don't, then it's not going to work at all. It will atrophy." And then it talks about what, like, is your personality resilient? Well, it says there are various definitions of resilience, but they all tend to focus on beyond surviving and actually thriving during our times of stress. And it says resilience is the ability to not only bounce back from adversity, such as a diagnosis from MS, but also the ability to maintain a good quality of life in the face of frequent stressors that come with living with MS. And it also says, but that doesn't mean you need to take a Pollyanna approach to your disease or your life. Resilience is not the absence of ever feeling sad or lost or angry, which I know we all do at some points. But it says resilience is the ability to not dwell on those feelings and to find a way to move forward. And it's hard. It's really, really hard. And I understand that, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate. But it also talks about you need to focus on what you can do rather than focusing on what you can't do. And if it's something that you can do for others, then that's even better. And that is so true, because I know that when I help other people, I feel so wonderful about myself. I feel really good. It's very satisfying. So I don't know if any of you can relate to that, but when I read that, I said, oh my gosh, that is so right, because every time I help other people, it just makes me feel that I accomplished something. I've helped someone else, and that makes me feel really good. And then it talks about how there's a specific inventory that assesses 7 personality characteristics that contribute to resilience. And I'm going to read them to you. Number 1 is being able to control your emotions when you're under pressure. Well, for me, that's kind of difficult because I actually have a symptom from MS that's called PBA, pseudobulbar affect, which causes uncontrollable laughter or crying. And so it's really hard for me to control my emotions, especially when I'm under pressure, because I have this symptom where I may laugh or I may cry at inappropriate times. So that's really difficult for me. But I try my best. I try my best to control my emotions. And if I feel that I'm in a situation where it's inappropriate for me to laugh or cry in public, then I tend to find a way out of the situation. So I guess that is controlling my emotions, because I know that if I'm going to be inappropriate, then I leave the situation. So yeah, that's kind of controlling my emotions when I'm under pressure. The second thing is to exercise control over your impulses and bad behaviors. It just says control over your impulses and behaviors. I added the bad behaviors because I had to learn this the hard way. One of my bad behaviors, just behaviors in general, for me it was bad, was going out with friends, and especially like drinking at the bars. I know that the impulse, it's very difficult to not go out with friends if you're invited to a specific event or something like that. It's hard, but I've learned that those impulses and my behaviors of socializing and going out and drinking alcohol, it's not good, and it's only going to be bad for me. It'll be really bad. If I am overtired, it'll only make my MS worse. So I do exercise control over my impulses and behaviors, because I have to say no, which was very, very difficult for me at first, but I learned the hard way, and so I don't do that anymore. I still go out occasionally, but I have to listen to my body, and I know that in certain situations, I know that it would just be bad for me. So I decline a lot of invitations because I know that I'll pay for it if I don't. So I do exercise control over my impulses and my behaviors. It's difficult, but I do it. The third thing, it says, accurately identify the true cause of your adversity. Well, the true cause of my adversity, I believe, is just, overcoming situations while living with multiple sclerosis. That's definitely, something that I was thrown into. Like all of us, we were thrown into it without really, without asking for it, without doing anything wrong. So the true cause of my adversity is just living well while having multiple sclerosis. And I was able to identify that pretty quickly. The fourth thing is believing you can solve problems and be successful. Well, that is something that I definitely have had to work on, but I know that I can solve problems and I can be successful because I focus on my strengths. At my job, for instance, I have solved problems because I find something that I see or feel doesn't make sense, and then I come up with a solution, and I think that a lot of people have told me that what I've done is the right thing, is a good thing, is a benefit for my department, for my organization. So I definitely see myself as successful because I can solve problems. I see what's wrong and I fix it. Or I talk about it, and then after talking to my boss about it, I fix the problems and help other people. The fifth thing is staying positive about the future while still being realistic. Well, yeah, that's definitely something that I do. It's work, it's hard, but I can definitely stay positive because I know that, my life is different from people that are not living with multiple sclerosis. I've known that since I was 18 years old. So I can definitely stay positive because I know what my strengths are. I know what I can do. And I'm realistic because I know that I can't do what everyone else is doing that doesn't live with MS. I'm very realistic. I don't compare myself to other people. I try really hard not to. And so I think that just trying to stay positive about the future is easy to do if you focus on your strengths. You focus on your positives, and you can do it. You can focus on yourself. You can focus on your future, and you can definitely be successful while being positive, because all you have to do is, it's hard. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's definitely something that we all need to practice. Number 6 is showing empathy towards others and developing relationships. Well, that is one of the easiest things for me to do. I don't know about you, but showing empathy for other people, oh my gosh. I was empathetic before I even had multiple sclerosis because I'm a very sensitive person. So showing empathy is very easy for me because I know what it's like to struggle, and I know what it's like to have to overcome the little things that lead up to big things. And so when I see someone else struggling, I always offer help because I know that when people offer me help, I'm very grateful and I want to pay back. I want to help other people. So it's very easy for me to show empathy towards others. And number 7 is thinking positively and embracing challenges and opportunities. Well, that's also easy for me, and I think that, again, resilience is a muscle, so it's something that I think we have to train ourselves to do, but I'm very capable of thinking positively. Fortunately, I am able to do that. I think positively, and I embrace challenges and opportunities. Because I think that it's a really good thing just to keep your mind moving and embrace opportunities because it will only help you in the long run. And there's something else in the article that I wanted to talk about that I think is important. It talks about how stress too affects resilience. It says our brain kicks into gear with these hormones, like cortisol, to avoid real or perceived harm. It says that this is known as the fight or flight response. It's genetically programmed in each of us, and the more cortisol you produce when you're stressed, the more vulnerable you are to resilience zappers, like depression and anxiety. And there's a doctor, he talks about how you can just devote 15 minutes a day to resilience skill building and use one of your existing strengths in a new and different way each time. And that can significantly boost your overall resilience and keep cortisol, it spikes by. So, for example, it says, if gratitude is your strength, it says, perhaps you can write 3 things down that you're grateful for one day. And the next you can think of someone who did something kind for you. It says that, like, whenever someone does something nice for you, you can write these things down. Write 3 things down that you're grateful for every day. And then on the days when you feel fatigued or your schedule is overloaded, even 15 minutes may seem like an overwhelming chore, which it definitely can. And it says, but when you're stuck and all you see is the negative, to really be open and do things to increase your resilience, it can be hard. That's why there are various types of therapy that can help. And it says a 2012 study found that people who participated in an 8-week course of occupational therapy focused on adapting to MS symptoms like fatigue and cognitive difficulties had significantly higher resilience level than those who didn't participate. The study participants also engaged in physical therapy and psychosocial therapy and social work. And those sessions focused on overcoming housing and insurance difficulties. And one of the doctors, he said that there are 12 lifestyle behaviors and habits that you can learn that can substantially boost your resilience. No matter what your genetic programming, this type of skill building, known as biopsychosocial approach to resilience, was shown in a 2015 study to increase resilience in 196 adults with MS. So that's pretty cool. And it says in the article, it says, better by the dozen. 12 seems like a lot, but their research doesn't suggest that you must do all 12 things to be perfectly resilient. For instance, if you have spasticity, you may have difficulty with sleeping or exercising. So, see which of these 12 factors you have the capability to turn up instead. So, okay, these 12 lifestyle behaviors include, number 1 is sleep. And I briefly mentioned that before, but it says that lack of sleep compromises emotional regulation. And so if sleep is an issue for you, talk to your doctor about ways you can improve it. I think sleep is essential for everyone, but especially for those living with a challenge. So that's one of these behaviors that can help with resilience. Getting a good night's sleep is incredibly important. Number two is exercise. Any form of exercise helps the brain produce a peptide called BDNF, which has been shown in some studies to help improve cognition. And the better you're able to think during times of adversity, the more resilience you can exhibit. Now, I know for me, exercise can be challenging. I used to love running, and I can't run anymore, so now I use an elliptical, but it can be really hard because I have fatigue, so it can be very hard. But I know that exercise can only help me, so it's something that I have to work on. Number 3 in this article talks about social support. The 2012 occupational therapy study found that people with MS who have more relationships and social networks, they have greater resilience. And I think that's really important to have a lot of contacts and people that you talk to and work with, whether it's at a job or it's somewhere where you volunteer or your family. It's just important to have social support and be honest with people. The fourth thing, it talks about mindfulness meditation. A 2010 study showed that meditation improves quality of life and reduces fatigue and depression in people with MS. So that's something else that I have to work on because I don't really meditate. I guess it's kind of embarrassing for me to say, but I don't really know how to meditate. I know how to pray. I pray all the time, but I have to work on meditation. So, it talks about if you don't know how to meditate, you can read about it. You can take a course on meditating, and it's really important and helpful for resilience and for people with multiple sclerosis. Number 5 is practicing gratitude. Multiple studies show that as you get ready for bed, you can think of things that made your day special or meaningful and have given you strong emotional benefits. So, I think it's really important to practice gratitude because it can only help you. Number 6, it talks about post-traumatic growth. When something bad happens, ask yourself, what can I learn from this challenge and how can I change my behavior? Kind of like going on walks with people or going out to the bars with people. While it's difficult, it's really hard to admit that I can't do those things. So it is traumatizing. But post-traumatic growth talks about how you can learn from situations. If you know that you can't do something or you shouldn't, then don't. Don't. Be honest, and you will see that it can only help you. Number 7, you can create a mind shift. Resilient people don't look at misfortunes from an all-or-nothing perspective. The next time something bad happens to you, choose a note. you can, this is really interesting. It says that you can have Post-it notes, and it says that you can either write catastrophe on one note and write annoyance on the other note. And it says chances are you'll find that you'll find yourself grabbing the annoyance note more than the catastrophe one. And so you can learn that if it's an annoyance, then you can learn you have to create a mind shift. It's not a catastrophe. It's just something that you can work through. Number 8, practice optimism. Some researchers believe that people have an Dr. Nowak said some researchers believe that people have an optimism set point that is determined genetically, and it accounts for about 50% of their happiness. So that when you can create as much as 40% of your own happiness by simply focusing more on the positive rather than the negative, that is amazing. Number 9, having a purpose or meaning in life. That's really helpful. Knowing that you have a purpose can only make you feel better about yourself. It keeps you moving forward, but think of all the things you still can do. Number 10, knowing when to let go. That's really important. So, when you know something is wrong or not helping you, know when to let go. Just stop. Number 11, practicing forgiveness. Dr. Nowak says that one study found that people who are unwilling to forgive have higher levels of cortisol, thus more depression or anxiety. It may be necessary to actually forgive your MS or your symptoms or exacerbations in order to improve your resilience and the quality of your life. If you're having trouble doing this, therapy is really helpful, and that is so true. And number 12, the final thing, it talks about identifying and developing signature strengths. This doctor says that research shows that people who spend time doing things that they like and are good at doing have a clinically significant decrease in depression. So remember that. Just focus on the positive, focus on your strengths, and that can only help you. So I hope that this was helpful for you. Resilience, I think, is such a really good quality for people in general, but especially for those living with multiple sclerosis. So be resilient. If you get the Momentum magazine, you should read this article. And I hope that everyone is doing well. Thank you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.